Good evening. Tonight, we're diving into a story that's sparking heated debates in boardrooms, factories, and even the halls of government. Let's talk about copper, the shiny, reddish metal that's quietly powering your phone, your car, and the pipes running through your home. It's everywhere, woven into the fabric of our daily lives, even if we rarely notice it. Copper is absolutely essential to modern life. It's the backbone of our electronics, our infrastructure, and our transportation. But right now, a new debate is heating up in Washington, and it could make copper a lot more expensive, on purpose. Lawmakers are considering tariffs, essentially taxes on copper imports from other countries. The idea is to make foreign copper pricier, so American companies will be encouraged to buy copper mined and processed right here in the United States. On the surface, it sounds patriotic. Support American jobs, boost local industry, and keep our money at home. But as with most things in economics, simple solutions often come with messy, unintended consequences. Imagine trying to fix a leaky pipe with duct tape. It might hold for a little while, but it doesn't address the real problem underneath. That's what these tariffs could be, a quick fix that looks good at first but doesn't solve the deeper issues. The copper tariff debate is a classic example, a flashy solution to the decline of American manufacturing that could easily backfire, causing more harm than good in the long run. Supporters argue that tariffs will revive American mines, create new jobs, and make us less dependent on copper from countries like Chile or Peru. It's a powerful narrative, tapping into real anxieties about the future of our economy and the security of our supply chains. But here's the catch. Most American businesses don't actually mine copper. They use it. From electronics manufacturers to car makers to construction companies, they all rely on affordable copper to keep their products competitive. For these businesses, tariffs aren't a patriotic boost. They're just a new tax on the materials they need to survive. Higher copper prices mean higher costs, which can lead to layoffs, higher prices for consumers, and even factories shutting down. That's where the simple story falls apart, revealing a much more complicated reality. The global copper supply chain is vast and interconnected, and changes in one part of the world ripple across the entire system. So before we rush to slap a shiny new solution on an old problem, we need to look at the whole picture, not just the part that glitters. Let's dig deeper into the real story behind copper, tariffs, and the future of American industry. Because when it comes to the metals that power our world, the answers are rarely as simple as they seem. Why do some people want copper tariffs? It starts with real concern for mining communities in places like Arizona and Montana. They see lost jobs and blame foreign competition, especially from countries like China. Tariffs seem like a way to fight back, raise the price of imported copper, and suddenly American copper looks like a bargain. The hope: more demand for U.S. copper, reopening mines, and new jobs. Supporters point to steel tariffs as proof this can work, and they argue it's about national security, keeping control over a critical resource. For towns hit hard by mine closures, this promise feels like a lifeline. It's a compelling pitch: revive communities, restore dignity, and protect America. But emotional arguments don't always make good policy. Let's see what's missing. Tariffs are often described as a protective wall, a barrier designed to shield domestic industries from foreign competition and keep jobs at home. But sometimes, that wall doesn't just keep threats out. It can also trap those it's meant to protect, turning a shield into a cage. Take copper, for example. The United States consumes far more copper than it produces. Each year, about 1.8 million metric tons are needed for everything from electronics to construction. But only 1.2 million metric tons are mined domestically. That leaves a significant shortfall, hundreds of thousands of tons, which must be filled by imports from other countries. When tariffs are imposed, they don't magically close this gap. Instead, they simply make imported copper more expensive, raising the cost for everyone who relies on it. The impact ripples through the economy. American manufacturers, who build everything from household wiring to electric vehicles and renewable energy systems, suddenly face higher input costs. These companies can't just stop using copper or switch to domestic sources overnight. For them, tariffs become an unavoidable extra tax, making it harder to stay competitive and keep their doors open. While a handful of mining companies may benefit from this protection, the burden falls on a much larger group: manufacturers across the country. These manufacturers employ hundreds of thousands of Americans, supporting families and communities nationwide. When their costs go up, they face a tough choice: absorb the losses, which can threaten jobs and wages, or pass the higher prices on to customers, meaning higher bills for you and me. In reality, tariffs aren't a tax on foreign countries. They're a tax on ourselves, on American businesses, workers, and consumers. The policy that was supposed to help a select few can end up hurting the broader economy, leading to layoffs, closed factories, and lost opportunities. It's a classic case of the cure being worse than the disease, where the solution creates more problems than it solves. So before we build higher walls, we need to ask, who really pays the price for these policies? Let's take a closer look at how this dynamic plays out in the real world, and what it means for all of us. The global supply chain for copper is incredibly complex. Copper might be mined in Chile, refined in Japan, turned into wire in Mexico, and finally assembled into a product in Texas. This isn't about loving complexity, it's about efficiency and cost. Tariffs disrupt this system like a sledgehammer. If you tax raw copper, companies might just import more processed copper instead. Policymakers try to plug loopholes, but it becomes a game of whack-a-mole. Today's manufacturing is a global team sport. Tariffs force American companies to use more expensive, often insufficient domestic copper. That's like tying one hand behind their back. The result? Slower, less competitive businesses. The supply chain doesn't get simpler, just more expensive and chaotic. Tariffs ignore how the world really works, and that hurts American competitiveness. When copper gets more expensive, the pain doesn't just stay in the mines or the smelting plants, it ripples outward, touching nearly every corner of the economy. The effects are far-reaching and often invisible at first, but they eventually show up in places you might not expect. A tariff is essentially a hidden tax on American businesses and consumers. It's not just a fee paid by foreign companies, it's a cost that gets baked into the price of everyday goods, quietly raising expenses for everyone. When manufacturers have to pay more for copper, their costs go up. To stay afloat, they raise prices on everything from electrical wiring to appliances, and even the materials used in construction. These increases don't just affect big companies, they trickle down to small businesses and local contractors too. The cost of building new homes, repairing electrical outlets, and buying essential appliances like refrigerators all goes up. For families trying to make ends meet, these higher prices can mean tough choices and tighter budgets. Every business in the supply chain, from the factory to the warehouse to the retail store, passes these extra costs along until they finally land on you, the consumer. It's a domino effect that's hard to escape. We've seen this story before with steel tariffs, higher prices, fewer jobs, and struggling industries that can't keep up with global competition. In fact, one study found that steel tariffs cost about $900,000 for every job saved. That's a staggering price to pay, and it shows how these policies can backfire. If copper tariffs are put in place, we're likely to see the same pattern. More people hurt than helped, with workers and families bearing the brunt of the fallout. American companies become less competitive on the world stage, losing ground to international rivals who don't face the same extra costs. If a US air conditioner manufacturer has to pay more for copper than a German competitor, guess who wins on price? The answer is clear. Foreign companies get the edge, and American businesses lose out. The tariff that's supposed to protect American business actually puts it at a disadvantage. It's like shooting ourselves in the foot, a self-inflicted wound that's hard to heal. The lesson is simple but important. Raising costs for everyone just to help a select few rarely works out the way we hope. It often creates more problems than it solves. In the end, the real losers are American consumers and workers who face higher prices, fewer job opportunities, and more uncertainty about the future. We've made these mistakes before. Let's learn from the past and avoid repeating them. Tariffs don't happen in a vacuum. Other countries hit back. If the US taxes Chilean copper, Chile might retaliate with tariffs on American exports. They'll target products that hurt politically: soybeans, bourbon, motorcycles. Suddenly, American farmers and manufacturers are caught in the crossfire. Their exports become more expensive, sales drop, and jobs are lost. This isn't hypothetical. It happened with steel tariffs and EU retaliation. Trade wars create losers far beyond the original industry. Launching a tariff is like throwing a boomerang. You never know who it'll hit on the way back. The damage spreads across the economy. Retaliation is predictable, and the costs are real. Tariffs risk starting a cycle that's hard to stop. The result: more pain, fewer winners. Is it worth it? The main argument for tariffs is jobs. Yes, a copper tariff might create a few thousand mining jobs, but for every mining job gained, many more are lost in manufacturing. For every one copper miner, there are about 40 workers in industries that use copper. When manufacturers face higher costs, they cut jobs or scale back. Studies show metal tariffs often lead to net job losses. The jobs created are visible: reopened mines, ribbon cuttings. The jobs lost are invisible. Factories that never expand, businesses that quietly shrink. It's robbing 40 Peters to pay 1 Paul. Protectionism often destroys more jobs than it saves. We need smarter solutions. If tariffs are a blunt tool, what's the alternative? Invest in innovation. Fund research for cleaner, more efficient mining and manufacturing. Expand copper recycling. Already a third of U.S. copper use comes from recycled scrap. Recycling reduces import reliance, creates jobs, and helps the environment. Invest in workforce training for the high-tech manufacturing jobs of the future. Partner with schools and community colleges to teach new skills. If other countries cheat, use targeted trade actions through the WTO, not blanket tariffs. Work with allies to isolate bad actors, not punish everyone. These solutions take time and commitment, but they actually work. They build a stronger foundation for American industry. Real progress comes from strategy, not slogans. The push for copper tariffs comes from real anxiety about jobs and industry. But tariffs are a 19th century fix for a 21st century problem. They ignore global supply chains, raise costs for everyone, and risk trade wars. The evidence is clear: tariffs create more problems than they solve. The promise of a few new mining jobs can't outweigh widespread losses in manufacturing and higher prices for all. We've seen this story before, and it doesn't end well. The real path forward is investing in technology, recycling, and workforce skills. These aren't quick fixes, but they're effective. Next time you hear a simple promise about tariffs, ask, who really pays? The future of American manufacturing deserves real solutions, not feel-good gestures. Let's build on our strengths, not our fears. Thank you.